Good morning. Man, you got to forgive my voice. I'm a little under the weather, a little bit, but I'm fighting through it. So, taking my meds. Um, feel a little energetic right now. So, but I'm glad we're in the Final Four. All right. My mentor told me a long time ago, all we got to do is get in the tournament. We're in the tournament and we're still playing. And that's all that matters. So, we're looking forward to going out to San Francisco and having a battle with a really, really good team.
Since you do look a little tired right now, do you take like IVs? Like, are you like a player, to try to stay up?
No, I'm like a coach. I fight through it. That's what I do.
I know it's not why you do it, but I'm just curious with the comments Jared made at the end of the game and the expansive comments that Dan made on Monday, just about the job you do and kind of making sure you get the credit you
I'm
deserve.
about to ask you what comments.
So you have not seen either one.
No, I haven't.
Well, both Jared and Dan had some really, really nice things to say about you, and I guess even though you haven't seen them, what does it mean to have the support of your quarterback, the support of your head coach to make sure that you're getting the acknowledgement that you deserve, even if nobody's asking.
Listen, this is how I look at this team in general. Is we are a team, and everyone has to pull their weight, and we all do everything we can to make sure we do that. And we always support each other. I mean, sometimes things won't be going right, but we still support each other because we know the work that's been put in, by each person, each coach, each player, right, in this organization. And that's been a huge change for the most part. And we're going to continue to do that. So I'm appreciative. I really am. Man, there's a lot more work to do. And we all understand that. So we're always fighting to get to the point where we want to get at. And that's why we're here right now. Because the guys of what we've done and what the players done, that we continue to fight. So listen, any criticism, I take it with a grain of salt. Because here's what I do know. When things are bad, man, look at AG. When it comes to defense, when things are good, make sure you get the players their credit.
You're better looking than him.
I am. He knows that.
Let's talk about this a little bit, just sort of explaining what makes Kyle Shanahan's offense so special, that running game so special.
Yeah.
Share your thoughts on that, and McCaffrey is back to how he just amplifies that.
Listen, I coached with him in Cleveland. He was the offensive coordinator there. We had Johnny Manziel as our quarterback. And he spends a lot of time of understanding what fronts you're in and trying to attack the fronts you're in. He's one of the best in the league at doing that too now. And I've seen that personally on how much time he spends with that. And then I've seen him grow as far as his pass concepts, especially in how today's game works right now. So it's going to be a task, especially with the players that they do have. I mean, they have skilled players that's some of the best in the league. So defensively, we got our hands full. And we know that. But the way that I see it, man, they're going to have their hands full too. We're going to go out there and we're going to play our best.
From that time with him, or maybe he from you, that can be used this week.
He's a good coach. That's why he's a damn good coach. It's the reason why he's won the games that he's won.
So many weapons on that offense, but Ayuk really took a pretty big step forward this year. And seems like he has really good chemistry with Purdy. What do you see on film from that receiver in particular?
I think it's always been there as far as the chemistry. I just think now he's starting to get, like, as far as people understand exactly who he is, that's starting to show up a little bit. I'll tell you one thing about all these guys, including Ayuk. Their run up the catch is something special. It really is. It's not like they're just chunking the ball down the field, 40 and 50-yard gains. It's, man, when they get the ball in their hands and their ability to break tackles, and that's all of their skill players, from McCaffrey to Kittle to Debo to Ayuk to all those guys. All right, they do a really good job of that, and you could tell the coach emphasized that quite a bit because of how they operate. And this will be the best blocking group of receivers that we win against. We got to be really, really good in that aspect when it comes to the running game also.
Just looking back at last week's game, it's hard to ignore the impact that Barnes, Melvano, McNeil got made in that game. Like, that's three guys of that first draft class when you guys got here. Not first-round picks, not second-round picks. Just what does that say about this franchise? Stuck with those guys.
Well, you start with our personnel department and Brad Holmes and what they do as far as going to find the players that fit exactly what we're trying to do. So you give those guys a lot of credit. And then you give the players credit, too, for their development. Here's one thing that we talk about a lot. We need coaches that can teach and develop because makes your organization sustainable. And our guys try to do that, to the best they can. And our coaches make sure that that's what we want as far as coaches, teachers, and developers. And these guys done a really good job of improving every year, and that's why our defensive numbers have improved every year. Listen, it will never happen overnight. We still have some improvement to do, but for the most part, man, we're happy with those guys.
What's the biggest challenge facing a dynamic tight end like Kittle? When you face the Kelseys and the Kittles and the Andrews and the Laportas, what's the biggest stress you have as a defensive coordinator with that position?
Just matchups for the most part. Because for a linebacker to cover him, that's where the speed and agility, comes into play. And when a safety has to cover him, that's when the size factor comes into play. So the thing is, we have versatile players on our end too, right? That can do a good job of covering that player. But listen, that's not mean it's going to be easy, right? They just know they got to be on their P's and Q's to get ready to play that to cover that player. So he's one of the best in the league. He's an elite player. What he does that's different from most tight ends is his ability to block. I think he's tough, he's gritty, he's physical, and he has the receiving skills to beat you in a number of different ways. So man, I like that player a lot. He's one of the better ones in the league.
Aaron, Barnes a little bit in those pressure situations. Man, we saw those guys over the last few weeks. We make some game-sealing interceptions. Just talk about your confidence in them in pressure situations, how much they've grown as well. When y'all need to stop at the end, man. How they've grown in those departments is real specific.
Listen, this is one thing that we stress here more than anything is just the competitive nature of each player. And then what players are able to handle pressure situations. And those guys continue to show us that. And we put those players in those situations in practice also. Sometimes we let them make the calls, right? Alex, you make the call on the defense, man. You got to win the game right here. What do you got to be in? Those guys have came through. And that's a credit to our head coach of doing that week in and week out, of putting those players in those situations.
You said last week your James Houston decision as a staff would be decided based on practice.
Yeah.
You did add him to the active roster, so it feels like it's close. I'm just curious, how close, in your perspective, was he last week? It's a long layoff.
Yeah, I think he's very close. The thing that we want to do, we want to protect that player from himself for the most part. Listen, I do not take injuries lightly, especially make sure we listen to the medical department to make sure we bring that player along like exactly how he needs to come along. So he's doing a really good job in practice. You can tell he's getting back to form to where he was. And hopefully we'll get a chance to put that player on the field so he can make some plays for us.
Greatest assets is his bend.
Say it again.
So one of his greatest assets is his bend. I mean,
Absolutely.
he can just get so
he's very
low.
unique when it comes to being a pass rusher.
When you break an ankle, I mean that's really
No doubt.
important, obviously, to your bend. So how has the bend returned as he's gone through his rehab?
Well, here's the good thing about Houston. This whole offseason, he's learned different moves other than just being able just to bend around the corner on guys. So I think we're all looking forward to see the different techniques he has as far as being a pass rusher.
Purdy came in the league, 7th-round pick, not a lot of expectations, backup quarterback. And
It's always expectations. When
right,
you
but became an MVP candidate. So what's his sort of secret sauce that's enabled him to have success?
Listen, I wish I knew that, but I would say this just from watching the tape. He's highly competitive. He understands the offense. He understands that it's not about him. It's about the masses of the whole team. He understands he has really good players surrounding him. So his job is to deliver the ball to those good players, and he's doing that at a very, very high level. You see, once he hit his back foot, that ball is out. So he understands timing. So when you have that, and listen, I'm not comparing him to Joe Montana, but you kind of see those traits as far as once he hit his back foot, the ball's out. Like you see it. I think a lot of offense coordinators, quarterback coaches like that because of the timing of the offense. So I think he fits that system very, very well. He's doing a really good job at it.
Quite the run of pretty good receivers he's had to face here the last month. One or two good ones this week. Just how does he handle that stretch? Do you ever have to say anything to uplift his spirits after some of the big plays, or he's
Welcome to the
obviously
NFL. Welcome to the NFL and being a corner. That's just what it is. And that's what I like about Cam, because he doesn't let a lot of outside noise really affect him. Listen, we all know these guys have had some good games. We got it. Um, but Cam has done a good job for us. I would say that. It's the reason why we're winning. It's the reason why we're holding teams a certain amount of points every week. And Cam's been a big part of that. So I'm going to continue to support Cam. Um, and it's not easy. For the things that we ask him to do, it's not easy. So I don't see us changing who we are. Obviously there's going to be some adjustments when we go along as far as the games are concerned. But listen, I'm 100% behind Cam for the most part.
Purdy, if you don't mind.
Say it again.
I said one more on Purdy, if you don't mind. His pocket poise seems unbelievable for a second-year player. Just his willingness to stand in the chaos and the sense to step up. I'm just curious, when you are building a rush plan,
Yeah.
What's important about altering, I guess, the timing and mindset of a guy that just seems so calm in the pocket?
Here's what you see with this player a lot. You really don't get to him a lot because of the timing of the offense and him getting the ball out. So the one thing I preach to D-line, man, you got to get your hands up because he's a smaller statured player, all right? And he does a really good job of knowing exactly where he's going to go with the ball. So the rush plan, for the most part, man, four-man rush, you got to win. They have to, because sometimes you can send six and you would never get there, and the ball's going to get out. You just put your guys in man coverage and the ball's going to get out. So we have to do a really good job of really changing it up. Sometimes we'll send that, sometimes we'll send four, right, and have max droppers in the back end.
AJ, if you had to use just one word to describe your defense, what would it be and why?
That's a good question. Well, we talk about gritty. That's who we are. Listen, we know exactly who we are. Are we the fastest? Are we the most talented? No. But we'll bite somebody's face off when we go play them.
Not just settling for a kneecap.
We'll bite a kneecap too if we have to.
You've been around Alex a long time. Where's he grown the most, or even this year, where has he improved?
His leadership is outstanding as far as getting the guys to understand exactly how I'm trying to call the game and the direction I'm trying to go when it comes to the game. He does a good job explaining that to them because a lot of times they're in the meeting room by themselves, right, watching the game with a call sheet. He said, listen, I know AG is going to make this call, this situation, all right? So he does a good job of actually educating the other guys exactly how I'm going to call, how I see it, because he's been with me for so long. The other ways is his ability to play more violent than he did when he was in New Orleans. I give a lot of credit to Shep, his linebacker coach in that situation, because he knows as a linebacker, the way that we play, he has to be like that. In New Orleans, we use him more in coverage, but here, man, you have to be a really good tackler, violent, physical. He's done a really good job with that. It's not like he didn't have that. It's just the fact that we brought that out of him to be able to do that because it wasn't required to him in New Orleans. So, man, there's a number of ways that he's grown. I love that player. He's helped us as a defense. I just love everything about Alex. All right.
It's the first time playing outside in a while, like the second time in like 3 months, I think. What's the prep change? Get ready for that?
Yeah, we're excited for that. Winds light and variable, east, northeast. Let's see, we got 72 degrees, partly cloudy. Should be nice. Should be gorgeous. It'll be a great night. I've told you before, I enjoy playing outside just as much as inside. Both teams will be out there in the same stuff. It'll be good. Should be a nice day.
What stands out about their special teams units when you start breaking them down?
Yeah, these guys do a good job. They got some good players. Their returner, Ray McLeod, does a nice job. He's bounced around the league a few different spots, but he's a great competitor. He's going to try to compete and make something happen every time he's back there. They're gunners. They played with a bunch of different gunners for them, really. The last game, 84, 28, 10's been out there, 0's been out there. They do a nice job. They got speed. They got a good roster. They're linebackers. They have the Owen Burks kid who was in Green Bay. We played against him a bunch, who I think is a good player. 54 or 45, another good player for them. And let's see. Oh, Odom, number 30, great player. I mean, he's as good as any guy that we played against all year long. And they just got him back. He was kind of a missing piece for them, but they get him back. So we got a good challenge. They're well coached, very good fundamentally. We got a good challenge with these guys. And I do know this, our guys are excited for it. We can't wait. So it should be fun.
Comment on Jack and the job that he's done along with your coverage units and in field position so far in these 2 games.
Yeah, I think you don't really know what these games come down to until the game's over. And the bottom line is you got to be ready in all really 6, 7, 8 phases for us, if you include field goal block, onside kick, hands. You got to be ready in all 8 phases for us. And the game's gonna come down to probably some of those or one of those. And you don't know, is it going to be a game where maybe the wind holds up the ball on a kickoff and there's going to be more returns than we've had or more coverages than we've had? Maybe we kick with it more, they kick against it more, or vice versa. So one of those phases plays out more for you. The bottom line is in these games, but really in every game, you just have to be prepared in all phases and ready to go. And that's what's great about this time of year is like, it's the final exam. I said that a couple of weeks ago, but like all season you're preparing, you're going through the scenarios, you go through, there's 1 second on the clock, you just took the lead, it's the 4th quarter and you're kicking off. What are you going to do in that situation? What's it going to look like? What are they going to do? And you got to cover it. And you prepare on all those things throughout the course of the year. And now it's like, okay, man, here we go. That's what we did it all for. And it's really time to just cut it loose and go out there and play. And it's an opportunity to show what you've done all year long.
Last punt by Jack to pin them at the 10-yard line. When you're punting from plus territory, how tough is that when you're trying to take something off it and you don't want the touchback?
Yeah, I think it's an area where we've talked about in here, I think, through the years of, that I thought he could improve in. And I feel like down the stretch, I mean, he's been playing his best football and he's been big in the biggest moments. And that's the thing we love about Fox. He's a clutch player, man. He thrives in these conditions. And I think really our whole football team really thrives in this stuff. I mean, this is what we want. So it'll be fun. Field position will be important in this one, certainly.
Minorities on the squad as far as people on the coaching staff without NFL experience. There's so many guys that play in the NFL. I guess when you watch it, why do you feel like that's worked with the guys that you have that have played in the NFL from just surveying the whole landscape of the coaching staff? Like, is it a specific moment or area that you saw like, this is why we got this guy, this is where his NFL experience kind of
Yeah, I love that you just said that. It just puts a chip on my shoulder. And some more to prove, you know what I mean? No, I mean, that's worth something, but it's not, at the end of the day, this coaching in this league is about teaching players and getting players to, motivating players and teaching them and getting them to play and making sure that they go out there and execute. That's why I think I tell you guys all the time, my favorite part about the job is being with the players. And it's maximizing each one of them. It's maximizing the 11 that are out there on the field together. And I love it. As far as like ex-player, current, did play, didn't play, all that stuff, I really don't have the answer for it because I didn't play or not in the NFL. But I do know this. I don't think it really matters at the end of the day. It's going to come down to, are you a good teacher? And schematically, do you know what to do? And do you have answers for problems? Can you fix problems? And then can you motivate the guys to go out there and play at a real high level?
Jared Goff homecoming game or whatever, but you spent a pretty good chunk of your life out in the Bay Area, both San Jose State and then your first NFL opportunities with the 49ers. Can you just take us back, on how you got that job, and then how important I guess that opportunity, that first NFL opportunity was to getting to the career you've had.
Yeah, I do appreciate you asking the question because for me it is going home and there's always something special about that. I grew up in Southern California, obviously, but I did coach in the Bay Area for a long time. I really went back out there to coach at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo, which is in between LA and the Bay. And then I was there 3 years. Then I went to Nevada, Reno, which is just outside the Bay Area, for another year. And then San Jose State for 3. And then we went right from San Jose to the 49ers. I would just tell you I'm forever grateful for the opportunity to go to the 49ers, and I owe that to the organization. Every time I see Jed York, I thank him for the opportunity. If it wasn't for them and Mike Nolan gave me my first shot. He was the head coach at the time. I wouldn't be here today. I definitely know that. And then I'll try to make this as quick as I can. I know I'm good with stories, but or I don't know if I'm good, but I have them. But okay, so so here's what happened. I'm working at the University of Arizona, and I'm a graduate assistant at the time. Dick told me he steps down or got fired, however you want to say it or see it. And then John Malkovich comes in. Well, I was an alum. My buddy Brent Brennan, he was also on the staff. He's a great friend of mine who just took the head job at the University of Arizona. And we're both there, and John Malkovich calls us in. He was the offensive GA, and he's like, hey, here's the deal. I already have a defensive GA. I'm going to bring this guy in. This guy's name's Jeff Rogers. No, yeah, I know. Okay, so anyway, so John Malkovich is talking to both of us, and he says, hey, so I got a defensive GA. And I'm like, well, I'm out. Like, okay. And he's like, what? I might make you the offensive GA. I'm like, hey, coach, this guy's a hell of a coach. You need to keep him. I'll figure it out, you know. And the next day, Rich Ellerson, who's on the staff, takes the head job at Cal Poly. So I go to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Well, fast forward. And now I'm coaching at San Jose State, or I'm coaching at Cal Poly, and the phone rings. It's Jeff Rogers. It's the guy who took my job at Arizona, and he says to me, hey, I got a question. I'm working for Dwayne Aquina, and that's the guy I worked underneath and played under. And he's like, he had, you know, you did these forms or this, something with the video. Could you help me out with it? I'm kind of like, help you out? You just took my job, you know? And then I'm like, hey, it ain't his fault. Just do the right thing. And so I said, hey, no worries. I'll try to hurry here. So anyways, then we go on, and now I'm coaching at San Jose State. Well, Jeff Rogers is the assistant special teams coach at the 49ers. He leaves to go take the job at Kansas State. He calls me up and he says, hey, man, I just want to give you a heads up. I gave your name to the head coach and the special teams coordinator. And sure enough, that's how I got the job, through Jeff Rogers. So I try to say to everybody, especially my kids, they don't listen, but, you know, don't burn bridges. You know, you just never know when that's going to come back. So for me, the chance to go back there is incredible. I'm super grateful for it. And, you know, obviously the best way that I can show them that is by playing well for us on special teams. So.
Did you and Jeff become close, like, after that?
Yeah, so Jeff is now, he's the special teams coordinator with the Cardinals. And then, yeah, we've been close ever since. We both worked for the same guy, special teams coordinator in San Fran, and that guy's name was Al Everest. And truth be told, in terms of special teams play, he's had the biggest influence on me for sure. And I know him and watching how those guys play too, so.
Questions for you, just local guys, so maybe you could just share some thoughts on what you thought of him coming out of the draft. And then B, he's missed kicks each of the last 2 games. When you're going against a kicker that's had some struggles, I don't know if those are struggles, but has had some misses recently, is there anything extra you can do as a rush unit to get in his head, I guess?
No, I think, well, the first thing I'll say is we thought Moody's a great player coming out. I had him as my top player coming out that year and really liked him. I think he's going to be a great player in this league. I think he's like a lot of young kickers. They have their ups and downs, but San Fran's been smart and they've hung with him. And I really think he's going to have a great career. And I wish him the best for sure. That being said, in terms of is there anything you can do, I think our field goal block has done a great job of putting pressure on really most of the teams that we've played, and certainly the last 5 or 6 weeks. I think Kaminsky feels like he tipped the first ball in that last game a little bit. I know we've gotten a lot of pressure. I think that's probably the biggest thing you could do to affect those guys going into the next game is just the pressure you've put in previous or in the prior games, because they see all that stuff. So anyways, I wish them the best. I've always said that, man. I mean, before the game, you want the other team to play at a high level and play their very, very best, and then you want to play better than them ultimately at the end of the day. I would never wish poorly on anybody.
Along those lines, when you see something like what happened with Tyler Bass last week, I don't know if you were watching the game when you got home or whatever, but what kind of empathy, I guess, do you have for that situation? And you know the stakes are raised this time of year, but to see what happened.
Yeah, you hate to see that for him. You know, it's hard because everybody's going to write that that's what the game came down to. But the way I see those things is funny because really San Francisco gave up a huge kickoff return. They had a blocked field goal in that game, and they still won the game. So nobody's saying, well, because they won. And you can win and overcome that stuff, and teams do that all the time. Baltimore had a punt return for a touchdown against them, their punt team, and Baltimore won the game. Both those happened last week. So ultimately, you can overcome. It's the team that can overcome the most or make the fewest mistakes that win the game. Now, when you look back on it, everyone blames it on, the field goal or whatever. But it's like, well, how many times did you punt? So you didn't get a first down every time on offense. You didn't score every time. They don't say, well, they didn't get the first down. They don't always make every first down. Well, you don't make every kick either. So ultimately, I know you hear it all the time that, it doesn't come down to one play, but it really is the truth. These games don't come down to one play, but oftentimes we put more of a blame on one play or the other because it's human nature and it's easy for us to do that. We got to find something to blame. You know what I mean? But yeah, I feel for him. I think he's a great player too. So.
The team has two linebackers as talented as San Francisco's. What is the challenge for an offensive coordinator for kind of game planning around that kind of skill set in the middle of the field?
Yeah, it's you could argue these two are right up there with Baltimore's two stacked linebackers. They're the best in football in my opinion. Normally what we try to do on offense is we try to throw some eye candy out there and try to get them off kilter, but I think these guys have played so much football together within this scheme that you can see they diagnose and read their keys very, very well. They're very instinctive football players. So it's gonna be a challenge. We're gonna have to be fast. This is a very fast defense, attacking style defense up front, and then certainly at the second level as well. And then on the back end, they're super feisty. So we're gonna have to start fast and combat their aggressiveness with play speed and knowing exactly what we're doing.
Brad Holmes was named Executive of the Year, but at the FWA, it's part of that was what he did in the draft this year, obviously. Can you just speak to, his ability to tune out the noise? I know they're collective decisions, but tune out the noise about positional value or whatever, and stick with his guns and acquire the talent that he has for you guys.
Yeah, I mean, the process that we go through is so thorough. He spearheads the whole thing, obviously, and it's a collaborative process where we get feedback early in the offseason about the roster and the coaching staff gets to speak up of where we're at, strengths and weaknesses, and where we'd like to improve on. And he hears everything and looks to attack the issues at hand full steam ahead. So when it comes to the draft, I know between him and the head coach, they are always very much on the same page. And when you fall in love with a player, both as a personnel staff and a coaching staff, then I think what we've seen over the last 3 years is he's willing to go out and get those guys, no matter what the outside noise might say. And so fortunately here on offense, I can speak to Gibbs and Laporta. They've had an enormous impact on our success this year.
What about that trio of defensive tackles too? When you have the linebackers behind them, like you talked about, but then you have, some disruptive guys in the middle with Armstead and Kinlaw and some of the other guys that they have there. Just how tough is that when not just at the linebacker position, but in the middle of that defensive line, they're so tough too?
Yeah, no, I think that's the balance is they're such great penetrators at the point of attack, and they do a great job keeping the blockers off the second level. Coach Fraley and I were just talking about this a little while ago. What you see on tape from them a year ago, schematically, doesn't necessarily show up as a great way to attack them this year. And that's really due to the personnel. They are much stronger in the interior, in my opinion. They're playing really well. The edge guys, I think we all know about those guys with Boza and Chase Young. But this is a very, very fast, aggressive, physical group across the board that we're really looking forward to the challenge here this week.
A little bit yesterday about the ownership that you've given him in the offense, and he has suggestions whether you take him or not. You're all ears to him. How has empowering him made him a better quarterback and made your offense a better offense?
I think empowering anybody, doesn't matter really what position it is, makes them a better player overall, because the ownership of it, they tend to want to make that stuff work. Either it's a technique or a specific play. That's been my experience, at least. I do say the mistakes I've seen over the years when it comes to offensive football is I've seen guys come in and they plop down a playbook and try to change the quarterback, and there is a degree of growing the quarterback and challenging the quarterback, but I think it still starts with what that quarterback does best. So that was always our starting point. A couple years ago with Jared, what does he do best? And then we've looked to grow and develop him from there. And so it's been very much a hand-in-hand, step-in-step process, and his ideas, as well as, David Blau had some good ones last night too, third down night, right? So all these guys, they throw their 2 cents in there, and we try to come up with a good product on game day.
I asked you last week about Vita Vea and, running into him, and you said, you really got to be selective. You orchestrated a pretty unique game plan for, kind of how you guys normally play, using the pass to set up the run, kind of the inverse of what you've been about. I guess how fun was it to construct a game plan that was so far outside of the norm, and I guess how pleased were you with how that worked?
Yeah, no, I think, listen, the guys played really well, all right, because that defense had only given up, I think, 30 points twice during the course of the season, us in Houston. So it's really kudos to the guys executing the plan. Now, at halftime, I don't know how great I was feeling at that point. 10 points, and I think we had 0 explosive plays. To throw that ball that many times in the first half, I really thought that we would have potentially some catch and run opportunities or some deeper balls just present themselves, and it didn't happen. And so those guys, everybody in that locker room, they stuck to their guns, and it had been easy to try to reverse course or something like that. But we ended up breaking through the barrier there in the second half. I think we had 6 explosives there in the second half, and moved the ball much, much better. And the run game came along there in the second half as well. So like you said, it's a little bit different sometimes. Each week presents itself in a different way. And we just felt like last week that was the way we wanted to get after that defense.
Not to anything you've done at all, I just asked Dave Fipp this question as well. But just, you look at a lot of the players on the staff, the coaching staff, a lot of them got NFL experience. From you working with ex-NFL players, that'll always work out where they're able to coach. I guess when you're seeing so many ex-players on this staff, has it been a moment or any situation that you saw that has been very beneficial to the success of this team, having so many ex-NFL players on the staff?
There's no question. It's instant credibility with the players. They might not know the coach very well, but the fact that he played at a high level in this league, I do think that speaks volumes for the respect factor early on. I learned from a veteran coach when I was in Miami that you can't coach what you don't know. And so for guys like me and probably Coach Fipp, who didn't play in this league, it's been a race for growing that library, the volume, what can we learn? What can we be experts on that we can share that knowledge? And then our way of teaching that to the players is just, it looks different, because you might have Coach Hayden or Antoine Randall out there demonstrating exactly what they want. It's going to look a little bit different with me trying to demonstrate those same techniques, okay? But we just have to find a different way to get the same point across at the end of the day. And that's been the fun part about guys like me and Dave, I think, that there's still value. There's a good mix. And Coach Campbell said this all along, that having not the smartest guys or all former player, it's just the right mix of guys that we have on this staff, and it's worked really well this year.
How athletic of a tackle do you have to be for an offensive coordinator or an offensive scheme for you? You see it with Trent Williams, with them, but then with him too. We've seen you guys kind of scheme some things around what he's able to do in space, and just how much of an advantage is that for an offensive coordinator to have a guy like that on the edge where you can scheme some stuff and get him in space? What does it allow you to do maybe that you can't do if you don't have a guy
It's
like
an
that?
enormous luxury. I'll tell you that right now. there's so much that he's capable of, and he's still growing. You know, that's the crazy thing. He's still learning, he's still growing, and it when we face a defense like this, I'm not saying that we're not worried about the edges, because we are. We certainly are, but it helps you sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that some of their best players are going against some of your best players as well.
Against the 49ers and Bosa, and
he was playing left tackle, right?
Yeah, he was playing left tackle. He gave up a sack, but Bosa came out of that saying, "Man, this guy's going to be really, really good." The growth that he's made, in particular, what have you seen? You know, how much has he grown since that first game?
Yeah, I think the ability's always been there. It's been refining technique. I think he's excellent with both pass pro and the run game. I don't know if there's a better combination of the two at the tackle position in the league right now. But really where I've seen the most growth is the leadership factor. You see guys looking to him now. He is a tone setter for us here on offense. And really, I would say him for the offensive line, and then St. Brown at the skill positions. Those two guys, with how they play, fearless, aggressive mentality. They're not going to back down to anything. Really, those two guys are what we're all about on offense.
Your offense gets a lot of attention for the, fun plays, the innovation. What do you think is the hallmark of your offense?
Shoot, I'd like to think that it all starts with the fundamentals in technique. I'd say that's a huge part of it, because it's what we've been preaching from the springtime through training camp, and then even now during the season, all those little things. But when you turn on the tape, I would love to think that you see us playing with speed and attitude. Speed and attitude. We talk about that from day one, and hopefully when you turn it on, that's what's showing up each and every week.
I'll ask you one. San Francisco's defense, you've played these crazy blitz-heavy defenses in Tampa Bay and Minnesota here down the stretch. They're a team that wins largely with just their front four. I think one of the lowest blitz rates. We know Chris Kasirk very well from his time here. I'm curious, when a team can comfortably drop 7 into coverage consistently, how much harder is it to execute the explosive pass game that you guys have exhibited all year long?
Yeah, I think it's certainly a challenge. I think really where the biggest part of our challenge starts this week is trying to replicate this front for our O-line and tight ends in practice. Limited pads this time of year, so here we are, completely different style than really what we've seen this year. The Jets we faced last year is a similar front in how they get off the ball. So for the next 2 days, we're going to try to replicate that as much as we can in practice to show our guys and simulate the play speed. They get off the ball. I still remember Chris Kasirk. I was with him in Miami. I know he went down there from Detroit, and I just remember him vividly sitting there in practice. Get off! Get off! He just screaming, his spit flying all over the place. And so he's, in my opinion, the best in the business at teaching that front. And like you said, when you can generate pressure with just a 4-man rush, then there aren't nearly as many windows there on the back end. So if we do happen to catch them in man or a fire zone or something like that, hopefully we can capitalize on it. But we know those opportunities will be limited.
Real quick, John. Quick, sort of non-football question. I don't know if you've seen, maybe you have, maybe you haven't, but Delta's added extra flights from here to San Francisco, brought in bigger planes. I've heard stories all week about people going to Cleveland, Toronto, Chicago to get out there, making even into RVs, driving across the country, and you might have a decent chunk out there. I'm just curious what you think of this sort of collective effort to follow you guys out. I mean, you've seen it obviously on and off all fall, but
yeah,
it's a different level at the NFC title game with this.
Yeah, we always felt like, at least my wife and I, when we first moved up here, that this whole city was they were just waiting for a moment like this and a season like this that we've had. And you've seen it all year long with most of our away games really have been home games to a degree. We've had phenomenal support. I don't know what it'll be like here this weekend, because I know a lot of people want to go to this game, but the support's been overwhelming. It's certainly helped us when we've gone on the road. But it's been special to watch. It really has.